My understanding at this moment is our souls, before we came in to our physical bodies, chose to have certain experiences, which we're talking about trauma, so wounds, traumas, and we chose those for a couple of reasons. And I think I would have probably given another answer in another life, but at least in this lifetime, my understanding is that all the other lives where we've had similar traumas and wounds, we have the chance in this life to finally clear all of that up, to finally heal all of that. So we will have chosen in this life, and I'm getting goosebumps right now, we will have chosen in this life traumas, wounds that were similar to other lives, so that we could finally reconcile.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am really excited to talk to Tanya Stevens. Tanya is a mind-body healing guide, a spiritual mentor, and she's also the founder of Evolve Self-Healing Method. And so, Tanya, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me. I'm excited for our conversation today.
I am too. The reason why I wanted to have Tanya as a guest is because, first of all, in our spiritual evolution and in the growth pattern that we're going through in order to become the fifth dimensional beings, higher dimensional beings, a lot of it has to do with clearing out old energy patterns. And when we talk about this, sometimes people don't really understand what we're referring to. And so Tanya has gone through, she's had some stuff that has happened to her. A couple of things that are very common. One of it is the complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. Complex? Did I say that right? Complex? Yep. Okay. It didn't sound right as I said it. The other thing is multiple sclerosis. And I have people ask me questions a lot about health and how, why are we going through these experiences health-wise? And so that's one aspect that we're going to touch on. But the other aspect is trauma and dealing with trauma, because this is something that a lot of us, probably the majority of us, may not even realize that we have PTSD and what comes into that, but also how it's affecting our spiritual growth. So I am excited to jump into this with you, Tanya. So thank you. So first of all, can you give us a little bit of history on what happened in your life to bring you where you are today?
Yeah, so I want to start with probably, and I'm going to jump around a little bit, but it makes the most sense for me to share that my first spiritual wake-up call is what I call it, was when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, as you mentioned, in 2004. I was 29 years old, and I was actually, at the time, I used to be an occupational therapist, and I was working with people who had MS in a rehab center. And so the day that I was diagnosed, about a week before that, I was having symptoms of trouble sleeping, having trouble finding words. And then I went and ran a race, even though I wasn't feeling good. I was a runner. I was type A, so I was going to do it no matter what, right? And by the end of that race, I couldn't talk, and they took me to the ER. And long story short, I was diagnosed 100% with multiple sclerosis, which can have different symptoms for everybody, as some of you listening might have MS, right? And know that. For the next 3 years, I kept getting worse. I lost vision in my right eye. I lost movement, like I had a stroke on the right side of my body. And then it also happened on the left side. And at this point, I had no clue. I was not did not know anything about spirituality at that point. 3 years later, I had another big MS flare. That's usually what happens. People get better, then they get worse, get better, get worse. And I had a pretty big flare, and a friend of mine let me go stay at her cabin because when I had a flare, I'd have to go on prednisone, and I was not a nice person on prednisone. During that experience of having that alone time and really being in probably the biggest dark night of my soul, I went to give myself a shot of the medicine that they were having me take, which wasn't really doing anything. I was actually getting worse. And I heard a voice, and it said, "Put that down. I'm going to show you a different way." And no clue what that voice was. No, at that time, I had no clue what that voice was. Now I know it was my soul, but I had no clue at that point. But I knew I had to listen. And so that is when I stopped taking the medicine. And side note here, I'm not telling people to stop their medicine. I'm just saying that's what I was guided to do. We all have a very different path, right?
Mhm.
So at that point, I stopped the medicine and was like, okay, so what do I do? And I was guided to, many of you I'm sure have heard of Louise Hay,
Mhm.
and I was guided to her work. And then I also started working with Dr. Mona Lisa Schultz. I don't know if many of you may have heard of her as well. Also started to study with, oh gosh, what's the other really popular lady? That just left my mind. Maybe it'll come back later. But anyways, I really started to look at that connection between past traumas and the limiting beliefs and fears that I was holding because of those traumas and how they were impacting my body. And as you said earlier, I've had a lot of stuff. So just not getting in deeply to it, but the traumas that I, at this point, am still working through, mind you. I had a lot of, chose parents. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I chose parents that were, let's say, the most difficult set of parents I probably could have chosen. My dad was an alcoholic, mother, undiagnosed mental illness, still refuses to go get treatment to this day. Grew up with a lot of sexual abuse, physical abuse, of course, verbal abuse. And so, what I was shown with the MS was that it was really part of my blueprint, my soul's blueprint, to wake me up to the need to heal this past stuff.
Mm.
So, in a nutshell, that's why I'm here today. I've been doing this work on myself for myself since 2007,
Yeah.
and the MS was healed. I know Western medicine still says you can't heal MS, but the MS was completely gone by November 2010.
Mm.
And that was when I got my next piece of guidance, which was, okay, you're to take everything you did, the Evolve Self-Healing Method, and you are to now go out and you are to support others to do the same. So that is why I'm here today with you, Lisa.
Yeah, I am so glad you are. So glad you are. It's so interesting because, again, there's so many people that I talk to that have abusive backgrounds. And my guides call abuse anything that even makes you feel small.
Yes,
So anything abusive can be somebody that says you're stupid or that looks
absolutely.
dumb. And
Absolutely.
so you understand what I'm saying. And a lot of times we don't really recognize, we only think that abuse is something that has to be huge.
Right, like the ones I mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Physical and sexual abuse. I'm so
Mhm.
glad we're talking about this because, yes, almost everyone on the planet has had trauma, whether we call it that or not. Being teased at school,
Yeah.
right? I had that as well, right? So
Mhm.
we've got different levels of trauma, and
Mhm.
I think we also need to know we don't compare. My sexual abuse is just as bad to someone who was called stupid every day of their life,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, I think that's another thing that we do in order to survive, Lisa, is we downplay
Yeah.
the things that happen to us, right? And say, "Oh, I had it better than she did."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm glad that you're bringing up that because I do think everyone has trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we all do as well. But again, we may not look at one. form of the trauma that I experienced as, somebody that was raped or stabbed, or, there's so many different ideas of what we feel is. But I know that if somebody tells me that I'm ugly, like when I'm a kid, and it makes everything inside of me cringe, feel small, it still has an effect on me today, even
Yes,
though I wasn't sexually abused.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I really think it's important that people understand that, and that why it is important to be able to recognize it. So, how do you feel that this type of trauma, what we're talking about, first of all, where do you think it comes from, like as far as spiritually? Why do you think that we need to deal with it? And then once we deal with it, where does it take us?
Yeah, so I love that. You put it into three parts. So the first part, why, right? Why did we sign up for this stuff, right?
Mhm.
From a spiritual perspective. And again, when this happened to me, I did not have this perspective. I have grown into this perspective. And who knows, it might change again, right? So I always say I'm speaking from this moment. My understanding at this moment is our souls, before we came in to our physical bodies, chose to have certain experiences, which we're talking about trauma, so wounds, traumas, and we chose those for a couple of reasons. And I think I would have probably given another answer in another life, but at least in this lifetime, my understanding is that all the other lives where we've had similar traumas and wounds, we have the chance in this life to finally clear all of that up, to finally heal all of that. So we will have chosen in this life, and I'm getting goosebumps right now, we will have chosen in this life wounds that were similar to other lives so that we could finally reconcile.
Mhm.
And when I say reconcile, there's a combination, right, of what that means. One of them is to have the understanding, right, that this is why I'm experiencing this, right? So
Mhm.
so to have that spiritual perspective, which we probably did not have in other lives, most of us,
Mhm.
right? Maybe a little bit, but not to the extent that we have in this life,
Mhm.
right? Just the understanding is so much bigger. So that we can finally be free in this life, right? So we can finally be who our soul came here to be. And that requires us to clean up this trauma. Because every single trauma or wound, again, whatever word you want to use, negative experience, creates at least one limiting belief or fear, or many, right? Usually many. And we've been carrying those
Mhm.
from the moment that we had that experience. This is not a conscious thing, as you know, Lisa, as many of us know. This is not conscious, right? I wasn't sexually abused by my father and thought consciously, oh, like I am taking on this belief that I am disgusting because my father sexually abused me, as an example, right? But it
Mhm.
happens. It just naturally happens. And
Mhm.
again, we have all of these beliefs and fears from the other lives too, which are still connected to what's happening in this life, right? So it's for us to finally see, oh, this is what's been running me, right? This is what's been running me internally and externally. And now this is what I have created in my reality because of the beliefs that I'm holding. So that is why it is so important. I don't remember if that was part two or three of your of your question, but that's why it's so important that we do focus on healing trauma, wounds, negative experiences in this life so we can clear out, shift, again, whatever words you want to use, heal. I will often also use the word soothe, and I'll get into that in a little bit as well. These parts of us that are holding these beliefs and these fears, because ultimately we're here in this life to experience freedom, and that is really the freedom to be the soul, the unique expression we came here to be. So
Mhm.
we're not here to be like anyone else, but that's one of the beliefs, right?
Mhm.
That's one of the traumas, actually, is that we
Mhm.
were taught we were supposed to be exactly like our mom or exactly like our dad or fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens to us when we clear that energy?
Your life begins to shift, right? So when we shift the internal, right, and I'll give an example, I'll give a personal example, right? So up until my 30s, I was in very similarly abusive relationships that I had as a child. So, what we do, right, because I took on those beliefs and those fears, and one of them was I deserve to be abused,
Mm.
right? I deserve to be abused physically, verbally, sexually. So, I was attracting partners from the time I began dating. I think I first started dating in like fifth grade, which sounds ridiculous, but when you're sexually abused at an early age, that's a very common thing,
Mm.
right? You go and you seek it, continue to seek it. So I had continued to attract men that were treating me just like my father treated me,
Mhm.
right? And so I kept doing that until finally, right through the MS, was like, oh my gosh, I keep attracting these men because I think I believe I deserve that. Right. So, what happened once I was able to work on clearing out that belief is I just told you before, right before we started the recording, that I was married last year and to a man and a partnership that I did not think existed for me. No clue. I thought that I just continued to deserve abuse, men that controlled me, men that used me. And so that's just one example, right,
Mhm.
of what can shift in your life, right? And for many of you listening, I know relationships are going to be a very big piece of the healing and of what needs to shift and of what you desire. I mean, relationships are everything, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, whether they're friendships or romantic,
Absolutely.
it's all types of relationships, work relationships or whatever it may be that, is putting us in that position. I can remember that, looking back, at my childhood is that, and going through marriages, I've been divorced twice. And I realized at some point that number one, I didn't know what a healthy relationship even looked like.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have it around me. My parents got divorced when I was 10, and so it just, and it, like lots of different circumstances, but I didn't know how to have a relationship. And so I didn't even know, this is, we make lots of choices and decisions because this is all that we are familiar with.
It's what you see. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
what you see. And not just the way I was treated, but like what you're saying, right? My mom and dad, oh my God, their marriage was horrible.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine a mentally ill person and an alcoholic coming together, and
Mhm.
it was violent. It was so yeah. So of course, right? It's not only how we're treated, but then what we see.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we know, and that's all we know. It's again. So I think it's really important for us to understand that, we are products of our environment. We are products of what our exposure is and what we see. And so as we move into this place and this time in our lives now, it's to be able to recognize that just because that's all I've seen or known, there can be something that looks different.
Better, definitely
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
definitely better. And I'm glad you brought up friendships too. That was also a big thing that was in breakdown for me. Given that I was my mother's counselor from a very young age.
Mm.
So I didn't get emotional support, but I had to give it,
Mm.
right? Mentally ill, undiagnosed, untreated. And so what do you think I did, right? I mean, hey, that's why I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah.
And my personal relationships sucked, right?
Mhm.
Like I was always my friend's coach.
Yeah.
And they also turned on me and attacked me like my mother would. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, it
yeah.
was it was pretty crazy. So that's shifted too. So that
Yeah.
shifted too. So
Yeah.
yes, I'm glad that you're
Yeah.
talking about
And
facets.
again, what I think is really important is that for us to understand that this is part of this big plan. I'm calling what the word just came to me is the global plan, which is the universal plan. It's not just the earth plan, but we are recipients in being able to understand that these old paradigms, the old way of being, are being deconstructed, that they're falling away. And people like you have been shown these things so that you can help people like me, like us, recognize that there's a better way and a different way of being that's more in love, happiness, and joy,
Yes.
and instead of that heavy, denser energy.
And
So
the survival energy,
fight or
really.
flight, yeah, just us staying in fight or flight all the time, and then learning that that's not how we have to be. We've been conditioned to stay in that energy pattern, and that's what's breaking down. So so from the physical standpoint and from illnesses, because I think that these are actually kind of tied in together. So what do you believe that, why do we develop illnesses, and how are these tied into the spiritual perspective?
Yeah, so I know I talked a little bit earlier about soul plan. So I believe many of us, before we came in again, we decided that we were going to have an illness, a pretty major illness, right? Cancer, MS, fill in the blank. There's lots of major illnesses. That we were going to put that in our plan in order to wake us up. Because the truth is, humans, they don't wake up unless there's pain. Unless there's pain. And that's one of the biggest pains we can have, right? I'm 29 years old. I'm a runner. I'm a hiker. I backpack. And all of a sudden, I can barely get out of bed. So that, you better bet that shook my world, right? That shook my world. So I do believe many of us chose before we came in to have a major illness to wake us up. And some of us have it earlier in life and some of us have it later, right? So I work with clients of all different ages. I've got people that are in their 20s, and I've got clients, gosh, I think my oldest client was 81, right? So we all have different times that we set up for us to have our wake up call. And sometimes we don't listen the first time. So this is a very common piece with cancer, right? People get all the treatment, it's clear, and then lo and behold, they get it somewhere else in their body. So we've got that scenario with illness going on. Now, I also believe that we can get illnesses if we don't wake up through some of the other breakdowns that we have set up for ourselves. So let's say we have a huge relationship issue and we don't leave, right? But it's a huge breakdown. We're being called to leave and we don't leave. Then we could still, our soul might decide, you know what, let's give her an illness now, or let's give him an illness now because they need something else. This isn't working, right? This isn't working. The plan we had originally set up isn't happening. So I think that can happen as well. And then, of course, we have things like colds and the flu and COVID, which was kind of a big deal. And so, things are happening collectively, but also personally, right? So it can be both. And anytime there's an illness, really, it always means you're out of alignment somewhere in your life
Yeah.
with your soul, with who you are here to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that might be, oh my gosh, my self-talk is so perfectionistic and inner critic. That's out of alignment, right? That's out of alignment with self-love, right? With being that loving divine parent we're here to be to ourselves. Maybe the alignment has to do with, I'm not really doing the job that my soul wants me to do, right? And so maybe the illness comes to show me that. Sometimes illness is just colds. Why do people get so many colds in winter around the holidays? Because we're supposed to slow down in winter and tune into our soul and reflect. And we do the opposite, many of us. So we get a cold, boom, to make us slow down and stop. So those are all the reasons that illness can show up for us
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
Well, yeah, and because I'm curious, because you had mentioned Louise Hay.
Yes.
Um, so First of all, I my guides have told me a million times.
Got it.
Yeah, heal your
Right
body. Yeah,
here.
yeah. Um, that they call us the silly humans. You silly humans. We have to break you before you start asking for help and guidance. And literally, I'm down on my hands and knees saying, God, please help me. And if you think about, we don't ever ask for help or be open enough to receiving until we are just completely broken and down on our knees. And sometimes it's too bad that we have to be so stubborn because it could be easier.
Well, and I think it is meant to get easier.
Yeah,
And it does get easier once you have hopefully once you have the first 2x4. But that
yeah,
is one of the reasons. I'm so glad you brought that up, Lisa, because that is one of the reasons that we do get sick as well.
hmm
Is that pattern? I call it this pretending to be superhuman, where we have to do everything alone. We think we should be able to do it alone,
hmm
right? That we don't need anybody else's support, when really this life, we are here to build connection. And look at us, global connection, right? We can Zoom and all that. So I think that connection is also one of the big themes in this life. And one of the big patterns that we are here to shift is the lone wolf. The lone
yeah,
wolf. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and again, going back to the tribe,
Yeah.
that construct of everybody playing a role and a part, and you're part of the community.
And
Um,
equally important, and equally
yeah.
important.
And
Everyone.
the balance, we're all equal. Absolutely. There's not that hierarchy system that we're currently in. And I think that that's what's falling down too. We're
Yes.
kind of getting off track, but,
It's
but
all connected.
yeah, it is all connected. Okay. So, because the reason why I wanted to make sure that people understood that what you were saying about sometimes diseases can be predestined, that we can come in with the contract to have kidney disease, have a blood disorder. We can have that, but then we can also, I don't know if this is the best way to say it, you may have to correct my language, but we can talk ourselves into the disease. Meaning that, it's like a,
Identify.
yeah,
Identify.
that, okay, so I'm having these issues with my mother. Typical thing. Mother was controlling as a child, when I was a child, and took away my voice. So I lost my voice because of that situation. But then I developed the pattern of not speaking, which may lead to I'm just making this up, esophageal cancer or
Yeah.
something, because I'm holding that mother energy in my throat.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So
And
that's,
and so what we did, right, is we choose everything, right,
mhm,
including parents,
yeah,
right? So we set ourselves up. So yes, you would have set yourself up to get that throat cancer, let's say, or esophageal cancer,
uh-huh,
and in order to make sure that happened, you would have set yourself up with, in this case, a mother who
mhm,
caused you to want to hide your voice, or didn't allow you to have a voice,
yeah,
really,
yeah,
right? Controlling. So through healing that wound, right, and there's lots of different ways we can talk about that in a little bit, that through healing that wound, you would be able to heal the esophageal cancer.
yeah,
But you
yeah,
chose
and
the wound, to get the illness.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and and the way that I've been seeing this too is that, like you had mentioned, in this lifetime we were meant to break these old patterns, and I've seen it so clearly. It's these old karmic patterns.
Yes.
And that in this particular lifetime, this is what we're all here to do, is to break these old karmic patterns so that we can ascend to this new dimension. And then we don't ever go backwards. It's like this is the lifetime to do the work.
It is the lifetime to do the work. And
Yeah.
here's the other thing, right? Everybody, I know some of you listening are probably like, oh no, my mom's not here to do the work, or my dad's not here to do the work.
Yeah.
They are. We all signed up to do the work, and we still have free will.
Ah,
So my parents at this point have chosen not to fulfill our soul agreement, and which is I was to be their guide and to help them to move through their stuff, and they are both refusing to do that at this point.
Yeah.
Right, so we can't, we can support people, and that's like you said earlier too, right? One of the reasons we have these breakdowns and illnesses, and we're here to overcome them so we can help others to do the same thing. Some people aren't willing,
Right.
even if it's part of the agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is that part of free will.
It is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So when we start breaking this energy pattern that has created, all our belief systems, the traumas and staying in those old patterns and diseases. When we are able to let go of that energy pattern, what happens to our body physically?
Yeah, so it can be a little bit different for everybody. And what I typically see is that symptoms will increase when the releasing is happening.
So you might get
So,
worse before you get better.
yes, for a lot of people, you will look like you're getting worse.
Mhm.
So your pain might get worse, whatever the symptoms are of your illness might get worse. And this can be tricky. Sometimes they're getting worse because you're not listening. And so they're trying to get your attention. And also, though, it can be true that when you are very close to healing something, they're getting worse because, again, you said energy, right? So the belief systems, the emotions that are attached to those belief systems and fears, they all live in your body, right? They're all energy. So when they're leaving the body, it can feel like you're getting worse.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking of a few clients this year who definitely had a very big releasing of their symptoms, healing of their symptoms, and they felt like crap for a good portion of this year. Now they're
Mhm.
starting to feel better because they're on the other side of it.
Yeah. Well, our bodies have to get used to not having that energy anymore as well.
That is true as well. So there's an integration period. So there's like a releasing period, and then there's integrating because your body's going to need different things once it is moving into the healing phase, right? So you might need more rest. You might need more certain foods or supplements. So
Mhm.
as we ascend, right, which is really, that's really what ascension means. We're releasing the old gunk, right? We're releasing the old gunk. So as we ascend, we want to remember that our bodies might need more rest and they might just need different fuel,
Yeah.
right? And more downtime. So I think that's another thing. I don't know if you've noticed this, Lisa, but even in the past year, my intuition, my sensitivity has heightened
Yeah.
so much again, whereas I need different things as well, even though the MS has been gone for how many years, right? But I still can deal with some GI issues, right? And
Mhm.
that's just my body letting me know I need different things,
Yeah.
right? So it can
Yeah, and I think that we're changing so much on the cellular level
yes,
too. Not only, are we looking at this emotional energy that we've been holding on to, when we remove that, it opens up the space for a higher frequency energy to come in and replace it.
yes, it does.
Then our body has to adjust to this new way of being. And then when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of how the cellular structure is actually shifting and changing in us. But when we're thinking about, changing our mind's thought patterns from the experiences that we had, how we have to, you said integration, integrate this new way of being, that takes a toll on the physical body and the mind structure, and how to learn how to maneuver through in a new way of thinking and in a new body.
And to stay there. And that's why
Yeah,
we call it the integration period, right?
absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
and it can take as long as it needs to take, right? But
yeah.
yes, as it's not like a light switch, right? So, so
No.
these belief systems can
Yeah,
take years, decades,
yeah.
right, to fully clear out and to
Hmm.
fully activate those new truths. I like to call
Right.
them, right? The
Yeah,
truth of who you really are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important what you just said too, because people seem to think that when we, especially with energy, we talk about energy, the energy shifting. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to feel different. Tomorrow I'm going to see the world differently. It's all of a sudden, like the magic pill, and everything is better and fixed. But energy doesn't work that way, does it?
No, not usually. Because we are still so dense, right?
Right.
And because, as an example, if you heard every day of your life that you were stupid, that's not going to clear overnight. I wish it would. But to the amount of the trauma you had, typically is going to correlate to how long it might take for it to clear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if something happens once, it's going to clear more easily than if you've had something every day for 18 years, let's say.
Right.
Let's say,
Right.
right? Right. So, when people ask me, how long did it take you to heal MS? Well, I got diagnosed in 2004. It was gone in 2010, right? That's a long time. That's a long
Hmm.
time by a lot of people's standards.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say that patience, and again, it's divine time,
Yeah.
right? When you heal, how long it takes to fully heal, and it really is a daily practice of shifting and really working with these things we're talking about, right? Including
Yeah.
the beliefs,
Yeah.
but then also the actions,
Hmm.
right? So there's both that are happening at the same time, or need to happen at the same time.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the importance of self worth.
Huge.
How do you feel about that?
It is at the root of everything. It is the core. It is the number one thing that I work on when people walk through my door, right? I call it self-connection, right?
Uh-huh.
But yes, it's getting to the place of accepting who you are, what's happened to you without any judgment. Takes That's going to take some time too, right? Because we've been so conditioned to judge
Mhm.
ourselves as not good enough,
Yeah.
right. You were Something about you was rejected, if not many things, growing up,
Mhm.
and that chips away at our self-worth, self-acceptance. I kind of use those two together, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I do believe that one of the biggest pieces to healing is fully accepting I say all of these parts of you, right?
Mhm.
Your past, your emotions, your body. We were talking about body earlier. I've worked through huge body stuff, from, yes, the sexual abuse. I was date raped, but I also had a lot of body shaming growing up.
Mhm.
And so our body is a big one for a lot of us, right?
Yeah.
So all of this self-acceptance piece, and then the self-worth piece, is it's complex, but I like to simplify it and say, if you're born, like if you were born, which all of you were, here you are, why wouldn't you be worthy?
Yeah.
Why? It doesn't make
Mhm.
sense, right? People say God doesn't create shit. I love that saying. Like,
Mhm.
right? What's the point? Why would we have been created if we're not worthy? But we have gotten the
Right.
message growing up. So that is probably the biggest belief system that we are here to shift in this lifetime. If you only worked on that one,
Mhm.
and people don't even realize how much they don't think they're worthy
Yeah.
until they really start to listen to that voice in their head,
Mhm.
right? But I think perfection, I call it the perfectionist, is the biggest thing we are here probably to shift, one of the biggest in this lifetime.
Yeah. Well, I get that message all the time. That we're moving into this place of self love.
Yes.
And this is all part of this process, is learning to see that perfection of who I am, regardless of the stories that have been told, or what society says is right or wrong, or what I perceive as being good or bad, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What we're moving into is learning how to love ourselves fully and completely. So I think it's really significantly important that we talk about this specific topic.
Yes,
Um,
I do too. I call it being a learning to be a divine parent to yourself. a divine mother and father to yourself, because our self-worth comes usually from our family. That's where it
Oh,
starts.
absolutely. Yeah,
That's where it
absolutely.
starts. And everybody got a message. Almost everybody got a message, right? And
Yeah.
maybe it didn't happen in your family, maybe it happened in school.
Right, right, and a lot of people don't recognize that. You know, that it could have been your peers, it could be the teacher, the
Teachers.
adult in the room,
Yeah.
whatever. You know, it may not necessarily have felt like it was just coming from home, but there's a lot of outside factors, you know, is that play a part. So, how do you guide individuals in embracing that self-worth?
Yeah. So again, I call it being a divine parent, and there's a couple parts to it. So one of those parts is being able to, and this is not easy because most of us didn't get this, but being able to show up for ourselves emotionally and to make every single emotion that we experience okay. We were so often taught that our emotions were wrong, right? Those weren't good enough, right? If you have an emotion, I've been working with a client for 13 years, and still the other day, she's like, oh my gosh, I can't, I just realized I still was making myself wrong for not liking my mother, right? For being mad at my mother or irritated with my mother. And I was like, wow, right? So these things are, they're deep. They're
Mm-hmm.
deep. These belief systems are deep. So being able to show up for yourself emotionally and making every single emotion
Mm-hmm.
okay to have is a piece of this, being a divine parent, self-worth, being able to show up, and same thing with your body, right? Sure, there's going to be things we want to change about our body or heal, but right now in this moment, right? Can you be okay with your body,
Yeah.
right? And not judge it. So part of it is definitely the self-talk, and it takes practice,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we're on a daily basis, we're catching our thinking, right? And this is where I need to add in law of attraction, because a lot of people think, right, just positive affirmations. No, it's so much more than that is needed. So
Yeah.
much more than that is needed. It's actually saying, as an example, oh, I learned, I believe my emotions, anger, is not okay for me to have. It means I'm a bad girl, right? I'm bad if I have anger, which means I'm not good enough. So it's saying to that little girl, that younger part of you, right? And this is where you step into those divine parent shoes and say to your little girl, I know that you learned growing up that anger was bad,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm telling you now, as your divine parent now, all emotions are good, right? All emotions are good and necessary, and there's a reason for them. So we have this, you can call it rewiring, but I call it more like soothing. So you're showing up and you're soothing those parts of you, acknowledging those parts of you, having compassion for those parts of you that took on, in this case, the belief, right? I'm not good enough because I'm angry,
Yeah.
as an example. So that's just a little brief snippet. So, I
Uh-huh.
have tools for people to do that, but in a nutshell, that's one of the ways that we work with shifting those belief systems and
Okay.
fears.
Yeah. Okay. So you talk about the three P's,
I do.
and I think the three P's are so important. Tell us what the three P's are.
Yes, so they're the three biggest patterns that we take on in childhood, usually, in order to get love, in order to stay safe, in order to not cause conflict, right? So essentially to survive. And those are the perfectionist. I already mentioned that one before. So that's your inner critic. That's the part of you that says, I can't make a mistake. I don't want to fail. There's a right or wrong. There's a black and white. It says, I'm never doing good enough. So the perfectionist. And from the perfectionist, which again, everybody picks that up somewhere in childhood. And oftentimes we see it modeled. My dad was a huge perfectionist, right? There was it, to himself and to everybody else, right? So It's we pick it up, these patterns, because we see them. Of course, our parents had them too, and other adults. And then because of how we're treated growing up, right? So if you're also criticized a lot growing up, you're gonna also get that message. You're gonna take on that perfectionist. Then we have the people pleaser. What child doesn't want to please their parents, their teacher? You know, so again, right? But we're talking about these patterns aren't bad if they're in balance. It's when we use them to the extreme, which most people do because they think they need to still survive, even as adults. So we've got the people pleaser. That one's pretty self explanatory. We either do something to please someone or we don't do something that we're guided to do to please someone because we don't want to rock the boat, right? We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to cause conflict. We don't want to lose love. The third one I also mentioned previously, pretending to be superhuman. Now, this one is a little bit more complex. There's a lot of different facets to it. So some of those facets are, we already talked about one, you don't want to ask for help, right? And usually we don't want to ask for help because, again, we got the message in childhood that if you asked for help, maybe you were shamed. If you asked for help, maybe you didn't get it anyways, so why bother, right? So for those reasons, the superhuman also likes to focus on fixing other people and other people's problems because it's easier than looking at your own, right? So that's a big facet, and also very much overgiving to the expense of yourself, right? So you're always busy. You're always like, I'll use this as an example. I have a lot of clients that are coaches and healers as well. And they'll say, but I love my work. I love my work too. And if your cup is not full, how are you going to give to other people? You're going to end up getting sick, right? Burnt out, sick, whatever. But there's this over giving. I talked about it earlier in my example, right? I had to be my mother's counselor, right? So that's part of the superhuman. You're always giving to others, but you're not actually getting anything in return or enough in return. So those are the main facets of the superhuman, pretending to be superhuman. Superman, superwoman, right? We both do it. We both do.
And so the importance of being able to recognize this and balance is what?
Yes. That is the importance.
Okay.
How do we know? And how do we know we're balanced?
Yeah.
Right? How do we know we're balanced? Because our body is healthy.
Okay.
Right? Our body's healthy. We're not pissed off. We're not resentful, right? We're not having bursts of anger because, we're holding stuff in and we're giving, right? So both our emotions and our feelings in our body, our physical sensations in our body are letting us know if we are in or out of balance. But those are the three biggest patterns that are usually out of balance and are at the root of illness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the method that you created is the Evolve Self. I'm having a hard time speaking. Evolve Self Healing. I'm wanting to say self healing method. I'm getting all my words.
It's part of the upgrade. Is the word stuff. It's part of the upgrade.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time forming words these days. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the method that you created and how it can assist and how it helps. And okay, so there you go. Carry it from there.
Yes. So the Evolve Self-Healing method is a combination of keys. So there's 13 keys that we walk through. And the first one we've already talked about to some extent. It's called Connect with the Divine You. And it is really focusing on that self-acceptance piece. So these 13 keys, I'm not going to mention all of them right now. We can go ahead and give the link for the free gift, which will include all of those. But what I have found in my own healing and then supporting probably thousands of others by now, since 2010, is these life areas, these keys, need to be looked at. For most people I work with, all of them, there needs to be some kind of a shift, right? So another area, for example, is boundaries. So we learned growing up, most of us, it's not okay to have boundaries, right? So boundaries is another big piece. So all of them are very important. We have looking at passions, we look at your career and purpose, we look at health, and nutrition is a part of it, though a small part, right? I know mainstream still focuses a lot on nutrition. It's a part, but it's not a huge part. So we have these 13 keys we walk through, and we look at each of them honestly, right? And we rate on a scale of 1 to 10, how are we doing in this area, right? How are we doing with this key? Am I at a 10? I'm 100% happy with this. Or am I at a lower number, whatever number you give yourself, because this area is in breakdown? And what we do is we look at all of them, but we tend to pick the ones that are the biggest issue to start working with right away.
Mhm.
So we've got the 13 keys, and within each of those, we are looking at what are those belief systems that are causing the breakdown in that area. What are the limiting beliefs? What are the fears? And I help people identify those. And then we ask, okay, what do we know? What does our soul know to be true? What does our divine parent, higher self, again, whatever you want to call it, know to be true about this? Right? Maybe my 5-year-old took on this belief, right? Or my 10-year-old, but the adult me, my higher self, knows that that's not true. So what is true? So we have the limiting beliefs and fears, and we have the truths. And then we have tools within the method that help people to shift or clear out or soothe, again, whichever word you want to use, and activate what is true now. And so those tools are used really on a daily basis with the work that I do. So we've got guided meditations, those are more relaxing. You can fall asleep even to listen to those. We've got the self healing process, which is a more conscious practice where you're stepping into that divine parent shoes and you're talking to those younger parts of you that are holding those limiting beliefs and fears, right? And you're working with them. And I don't like the word convince, but you're soothing, you're convincing them what is true now,
Mhm.
right? So there's journaling prompts. So in a nutshell, there's lots of tools that people can use on a daily basis to shift that area of their life, right? So we're working on shifting the internal, and then we're also looking at, I'm going to use your example of the throat. So maybe the belief we're working with is it's not safe for me to speak my truth. What is true now? What do we want to activate? Right? As an adult, it is safe for me to speak my truth now, right? I'm not a child anymore. Really, nobody can punish me. Not really, right?
Mhm.
So we're doing that piece. And then as we do that piece, as we begin shifting that and activating the truth, the external might be, you know what? I'm going to go have a conversation or tell this person or set this boundary, or so then if there's something outside of you you can do as you are building that, activating that truth. If does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, it does to me because I talk about it all the time. You're actually, I'm sitting here thinking you're speaking my words. We're all exactly on the same page. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had mentioned a little bit about, recognizing what the soul's truth is.
Yeah.
So, there's a couple of things between the people have the hardest time understanding when the soul is speaking to them.
Yeah.
So, do you guide people in helping them understand the soul? What I'm hearing is soul
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
As the
Yeah.
soul speaks.
That's funny. I have
Yeah.
I have workshops called Symptom Speak, but I love Soul Speak. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
No, that's great. Yeah, so
Yeah. So,
that's a big part of the work I do is the spiritual piece and trusting yourself again. And I like to say trust yourself, trust your soul,
mhm,
right? So it's really trusting not the, and again I use the word ego not as a derogatory, right? We all have the ego, which to me is the conditioned self and the wounded self, the one that was actually
mhm,
holding the traumas, the wounds, right? So there's a difference in how these parts, and it takes practice, but in a nutshell, the soul, when it's speaking to you, It is calm. It is pretty short, right? It's not like run-on sentences. It's calm, and it's pretty clear and short. Whereas the wounded or conditioned self, it's going to be urgent, and it's going to be pretty fear-based, and a lot of scarcity, right? Just in a nutshell. In a nutshell, there's more things than that, but yes, I help people get more in touch with their soul, because what happens, this is the other benefit of doing the clearing of the limiting beliefs and fears. If you are clearing those, as you clear those, you actually automatically can get more in touch with your soul, right? As you are soothing, as you are clearing those, it's going to become more possible, right, for you not only to connect with your soul and receive its guidance, but then actually to follow it, right? Because that's another thing too. We can get our guidance and then not follow it because of the three
Absolutely.
Ps. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that that's the other thing, people that are listening to this, so many people want to become more intuitive, and they don't recognize that they have to learn how to listen to their soul. And by clearing out that extra chatter,
Yeah.
it'll help you become more connected.
100%. 100%. Because
Yeah.
if you're stuck in fear, which most limiting beliefs are fears,
Yeah.
right? Then
Mhm.
that is the number one thing that blocks your guidance,
Yeah.
your soul's guidance. Yeah,
So you mentioned also that you have meditation practices.
I do.
How do you feel that meditation, because we talk about meditation all the time, quiet the mind, quiet the mind, quiet the mind. So how do you use meditation practices
Yeah.
to help us to clear out the old energy and get more reconnected to the soul energy?
Yeah, that's a great question. My meditation is very different than most meditations. It's not for you to quiet your mind. It
Mm.
actually takes you through 9 self connection areas
Ah,
that help you to do everything we really have been talking about. We start with setting an intention for the practice. So it might be to clear out the belief I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy. Then we move into a desire, and it could be anything, right? But something that we're so used to focusing on what we don't want. So the desire might be I am always accepting, or I accept all parts of myself,
mhm,
or I know I embody my worth. That might be the desire, right? Because we're talking
mhm.
about worth right now. Then it takes you through connecting with your breath, which I believe is simple but necessary and powerful, because if you're not in your body, and I do believe the breath helps you come into your body, then you can't heal. You got to feel it to heal it, like they all say, right? It's
Mhm.
true. Then it takes you through connecting with your body, again in a accepting way, and then listening to any messages your body has for you. Then it takes you through emotions and
Mhm.
how you can be. It'll ask you to pick an emotion to be with and to work with. Then it moves into picking a limiting belief, fear. So I've got meditations for every life area, all the 13 keys, right? So
Yeah.
so so each one has different belief systems and different truths based on that area. So essentially it takes you through all that, and you can be awake, or even if you're sleeping, it's working on the subconscious level.
Good.
So also helps you connect with your what I call your something bigger. So whatever people want to call their unseen divine team. So
Yeah.
that's in a nutshell my meditation, which
Yeah.
it's not asking you to not think about anything. Very
Right.
opposite.
Well, I'm glad we brought it up
Yeah,
because,
too.
meditation takes so many different forms, and that's a different form than what people are typically used to,
Yeah,
but also necessary. I
yeah.
think it's a good practice. So, we are about out of time. So I wanted to touch on it. Anything that maybe that I didn't ask you a question about. Is there anything that you feel like you really want to share that we haven't talked about?
Well, I'm just feeling guided to say, and we've probably talked about it, but maybe not in this way, that again, I do believe that there's 2 pieces to healing. And one of them is working with our what I call our human self, right?
Hmm.
Those younger wounded parts. and being that divine parent for them, and learning to be that divine mother father, right? The divine masculine feminine. That's a huge theme in this life as well, is integrating our own internal
Hmm.
masculine feminine, moving from shadow to the divine. So I think
Hmm.
that part is absolutely necessary, and the part that a lot of people are missing. A lot of people move to the spiritual piece, which we definitely need, and
Hmm.
you have to have both, because otherwise we're just spiritually bypassing, right?
Yep.
Oh, I don't need to feel the anger, or I don't need to feel the sadness. Yes, we do.
Hmm.
That's how you release it from your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think both pieces, I know both pieces are
Yeah.
needed in order
Yeah.
to fully heal and fully integrate our spiritual and our human self, which is again what we're here to do
Yeah.
in this life.
Well, yeah, extremely important. Extremely important. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so you do one-on-one sessions? How do you structure what you do? How do you provide sessions for people?
Yeah, so at this point, I have a year-long program. As we know, healing takes time, and we work through all 13 of the keys in this year-long program. And there's a combination of one-on-one sessions and group classes. So we have small groups, and I think that's part of, I know for many of my clients, that's part of the healing as well, because we have felt like we didn't belong. We have felt like we can't trust people. So
Mhm.
I see that that one-on-one work is really important to go deeper, but also the group component is really important so that we can practice being our true self in a safe container.
Mhm.
So in a nutshell, that's my program at this point of the show.
Okay. So what how can people find you and get a hold of you?
Yeah, so if you have any questions for me, you can email Tanya at evolveselfhealing.com. And I also have a free gift that if you're just interested in checking out what I've been talking about today, it's at evolveselfhealing.com as well. And it's right on the welcome page. You'll see it. It's called the Evolve Starter Kit. So those are the best ways to get started.
Okay, great. And for you guys, you can find Tanya's website at the bottom of the video description. So all you have to do is jump over to the video description, scroll down to the bottom, and her information will be there. And I highly, highly, highly recommend Tanya and what she does. She's right on track. Awesome. So, Tanya, again, thank you
Thank you,
for being
Lisa.
here. And for you guys watching, thank you. And I'll see you next week. You guys have a great
Bye,
one.
everyone. Thank you.